The FBI found Jessica Richardson's husband dead in their honeymoon suite bathroom with a needle in his arm. But here's what makes investigators' blood run cold. The heroin was laced with a toxin that doesn't exist in nature, and the man she married had been dead for 3 years. Someone was using a dead man's identity to get close to Jessica, and when she started asking the wrong questions on their honeymoon, they silenced him permanently. The real question isn't who killed the imposter. It's who sent him, and why they wanted Jessica Richardson so badly that they were willing to commit murder to keep their secret safe. Jessica Marie Richardson was the kind of woman who made everyone around her feel like they mattered. At 28, she worked as a pediatric physical therapist at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, spending her days helping kids with cerebral palsy and spina bifida learn to walk, run, and chase their dreams despite the odds stacked against them. Jess had this gift. Her colleague Sandra Martinez remembered. She could look at a kid who'd been told they'd never walk and somehow make them believe in miracles. But more than that, she made their parents believe too. Jessica had grown up in a working-class family in South Philadelphia. Her father, Robert Richardson, was a union electrician who worked double shifts to put her through college. Her mother, Catherine, cleaned office buildings at night so Jessica could focus on her studies during the day. They sacrificed everything for their daughter's education, and Jessica never forgot it. She used to send half her paycheck home to help with their mortgage, her best friend Angela Thompson later told police. Even after they told her to stop, she'd sneak money into her mom's purse when she visited. That's just who Jess was. She took care of everyone. Jessica met the man she knew as Thomas Alexander Mitchell at a medical conference in Chicago in March 2018. He introduced himself as a pharmaceutical sales representative specializing in pediatric medications, a perfect match for her work. He was charming, well-dressed, and seemed genuinely interested in her passion for helping children. He knew all the right things to say, Angela remembered. He talked about wanting to make medicine more accessible to kids who couldn't afford it. He even donated $10,000 to the hospital's equipment fund after their second date. Jess was completely smitten. Their romance moved quickly. Thomas showered Jessica with expensive gifts, designer purses, jewelry, weekend trips to New York and Boston. He claimed to be very successful, living in a luxury apartment in Center City and driving a Mercedes-Benz that he said was a company car. But here's what nobody knew at the time. The real Thomas Alexander Mitchell had died in a car accident in Denver, Colorado on January 15, 2015, more than 3 years before Jessica met the man using his name. The couple got engaged on Valentine's Day 2019, exactly 11 months after they met. Thomas proposed with a $25,000 ring during a private dinner at Le Bernardin in New York City. Jessica's parents were thrilled. They'd never seen their daughter so happy, and Thomas seemed to genuinely love her. He fit right into our family, Robert Richardson later testified through tears. He helped me fix the sink in their kitchen, watched football with me on Sundays. He called Catherine Mom and brought her flowers every time he visited. How could we have known? The wedding was planned for October 12, 2019 at the Union League of Philadelphia. Thomas insisted on paying for everything, the venue, the flowers, the catering, Jessica's dress. He claimed his family was from overseas and wouldn't be able to attend, which Jessica found sad but understandable. She wanted him to have family there, Catherine Richardson remembered. She kept asking if we could invite some of our cousins to sit on his side so he wouldn't feel alone. That's how big her heart was. The ceremony was beautiful. Jessica looked radiant in her Vera Wang gown, and Thomas seemed like the perfect groom, attentive, emotional, clearly in love. The reception lasted until 2 a.m., with Jessica dancing with her father to "The Way You Look Tonight," while Thomas watched with tears in his eyes. For their honeymoon, Thomas had planned a surprise trip to Santorini, Greece. He'd booked the most expensive suite at the Canav Zoya Suites, complete with a private infinity pool and breathtaking views of the Aegean Sea. Jessica had never been to Europe, and she couldn't stop posting photos on Instagram with captions like "Living the dream with my dream man" and "Mrs. Mitchell forever." But somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, Jessica started noticing things that didn't add up. The first red flag came when Thomas's passport was flagged by Greek customs. Jessica watched in confusion as her new husband was pulled aside for additional questioning that lasted nearly 2 hours. When he finally emerged, he was sweating despite the air conditioning and claimed there had been a mix-up with the computer system. He seemed really shaken, Jessica later told investigators. He kept looking over his shoulder like someone was following us. When I asked if everything was okay, he snapped at me for the first time ever. Then he immediately apologized and bought me an expensive necklace at the airport gift shop. Their first 3 days in Santorini seemed perfect. Thomas was back to his charming self, taking Jessica to expensive restaurants and arranging private boat tours around the island. But Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Thomas kept his phone with him constantly, taking calls in private and speaking in hushed tones. He used to leave his phone lying around all the time, Jessica remembered. But suddenly it was glued to his hand. When it rang during dinner, he'd step outside to answer it. When I asked who was calling, he'd say it was work. But why would pharmaceutical sales be so urgent on our honeymoon? On their 4th night, October 16, 2019, Jessica woke up at 3 a.m. to find Thomas gone from their suite. She searched the hotel grounds and finally found him on a secluded part of the beach, having an intense conversation with a man she'd never seen before. When she approached, both men went silent, and the stranger quickly walked away. Thomas told me it was just another hotel guest who couldn't sleep, Jessica later testified. But they weren't talking like strangers. They were talking like they knew each other well, and Thomas looked scared. The next morning, Jessica decided to do something that would change everything. She looked through Thomas's luggage while he was in the shower. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden in a pocket of his suitcase was a Colorado driver's license with Thomas's photo but a completely different name, Kevin James Morrison. The address was in Denver, and the license had been issued just 6 months earlier. I sat there staring at this license trying to make sense of it, Jessica remembered. Maybe it was some kind of mistake, or maybe he'd had his identity stolen and had to get a new license. I was trying so hard to find a reasonable explanation because I loved him so much. But when Jessica confronted Thomas about the license, his reaction told her everything she needed to know. Instead of confusion or concern, she saw panic in his eyes. He grabbed the license from her hands and began pacing the room like a caged animal. He started talking really fast, saying it was complicated, that he couldn't explain everything, but he needed her to trust him, Jessica later told police. He said there were people who wanted to hurt him, that he'd been forced to use a different name for protection. He begged me not to tell anyone about the license. Jessica's nursing training had taught her to recognize when someone was lying, and every instinct told her that Thomas, or Kevin, or whoever he really was in serious trouble. But she was also terrified. She was in a foreign country with a man who had been lying to her about his most basic identity. That evening, Jessica made a decision that may have saved her life. She called her friend Angela from the hotel lobby while Thomas was napping and told her everything. She was whispering into the phone, clearly scared, Angela later testified. She said she thought she might be in danger but didn't know what to do. I told her to get to the American embassy immediately, but she said she couldn't just abandon Thomas if he was really in trouble. Angela convinced Jessica to at least call her parents and let them know something was wrong. At 11:30 p.m. Santorini time, Jessica called home and spoke to her mother for what would be the last time. She sounded scared, but she was trying to hide it, Catherine Richardson remembered. She said Thomas was going through some work problems and might need to come home early. She made me promise to call the police if she didn't check in within 24 hours. I should have insisted she come home right then. At 2:15 a.m. on October 18, 2019, hotel security received a noise complaint from the suite next to Jessica's. Guests reported hearing shouting, something crashing, and then complete silence. When security knocked on the door, no one answered. Using their master key, hotel staff entered the suite to find Jessica unconscious on the bedroom floor with a head injury, and the man she'd married dead in the bathroom with a heroin needle in his arm. But here's where this case becomes truly terrifying. The toxicology report revealed that the heroin had been laced with tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin found in pufferfish that's virtually impossible to obtain unless you have very specific knowledge and connections. This wasn't a drug overdose, this was a sophisticated assassination. Greek authorities initially treated the case as a murder-suicide, assuming Thomas had attacked Jessica and then killed himself. But the evidence didn't support that theory. Jessica's injuries were consistent with being struck by a blunt object, not beaten by someone about to commit suicide. And the tetrodotoxin suggested a level of planning that contradicted the crime scene's appearance. When the FBI became involved due to American citizens being victims, they discovered that the man Jessica had married was indeed Kevin James Morrison, a low-level criminal from Denver with arrests for identity theft and fraud. But even more disturbing, Kevin Morrison had been reported missing by his parole officer 3 months before Jessica met Thomas. Someone recruited Morrison to play this role, FBI Special Agent Patricia Adams later explained to Jessica's family. They gave him a new identity, taught him enough about pharmaceutical sales to be convincing, and funded his lifestyle for over a year. This was a long-term operation with a specific target. But here's where the investigation hit a wall. Kevin Morrison's criminal associates in Denver all had solid alibis for the time of his death. The man Jessica saw him talking to on the beach was never identified, despite extensive review of hotel security footage. And most frustratingly, investigators could never determine why anyone would go through such elaborate lengths to target Jessica Richardson, a pediatric physical therapist from Philadelphia. We investigated every aspect of Jessica's life, Agent Adams explained. Her work, her family, her friends, her finances. There was nothing that would explain why someone would orchestrate this kind of operation against her. She was exactly who she appeared to be, a kind, hard-working woman who helped sick children. The case became even more complex when investigators discovered that Kevin Morrison had been living the Thomas Mitchell persona for several months before meeting Jessica. He'd had the apartment, the car, the job history. All of it was real and established. Someone had invested serious money and time into creating this identity. Jessica survived her head injury but lost all memory of the attack. She remembers confronting Thomas about the fake license and going to bed upset, but nothing after that until she woke up in a Greek hospital 3 days later. The doctor said the memory loss might be permanent, Jessica's father Robert explained. Whatever she saw that night, whoever hurt her, it's locked away where she can't reach it. In some ways, maybe that's a blessing. Jessica returned to Philadelphia a different person. The confident, joyful woman who had helped children overcome impossible odds was now looking over her shoulder constantly, jumping at unexpected sounds, unable to sleep through the night. She tried to go back to work, but she couldn't focus, her supervisor Sandra Martinez said. Every time a new staff member started, she'd panic, wondering if they were really who they claimed to be. She'd been betrayed so fundamentally that she couldn't trust anyone. You don't go to these lengths for money, Agent Adams explained. This was about getting close to Jessica specifically, and when that plan failed, they eliminated the evidence. But what did they want with her? What did they think she knew or had access to? Some investigators believe Jessica's work at the Children's Hospital might be connected. She had access to medical records, research data, and pharmaceutical trial information. Could someone have wanted her to steal medical research or patient information? Others think the connection might be through her family. Her father worked at several defense contractors during his electrical career. Her mother cleaned offices for law firms and financial companies. Could Jessica have been targeted as a way to access sensitive information through her family connections? The most disturbing theory is that Jessica wasn't the real target at all, that someone wanted Kevin Morrison dead and used Jessica as bait to lure him to a remote location where he could be eliminated without drawing attention to his real criminal activities. Today, Jessica Richardson lives under an assumed name in a different state. She's undergone extensive therapy and slowly rebuilt her life. But she still can't practice physical therapy. The betrayal was too complete, the trust too shattered. She helps people in other ways now, Angela Thompson explained, choosing her words carefully. She's found purpose again, but she'll never be the same person she was before. How could she be? The case officially remains open with the FBI's Violent Crimes Unit. Agent Adams, now retired, still checks for new leads occasionally, but admits the trail has gone cold. Somebody out there knows why Jessica Richardson was targeted, Adams said in a recent interview. Someone planned this operation, funded it, and then watched it fall apart. They're still out there, and Jessica will never be truly safe until we find them. 8 years later, the questions multiply instead of diminish. Who recruited Kevin Morrison? How did they create such a convincing false identity? What did they want from Jessica? And most terrifyingly, are they still looking for her? Jessica's family has never stopped believing that answers exist somewhere. Her father still checks online crime databases weekly, looking for cases that might connect to his daughter's story. Her mother keeps a folder of newspaper clippings and internet printouts, convinced that someday a piece will fit that makes everything clear. The search for answers continues and hope never dies. If unsolved mysteries like this move you, stories of innocent victims, families who refuse to give up, and the belief that truth will eventually surface, then you're exactly where you belong. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something and you believe answers are still out there. And listen, if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Every single week we dive deep into cases that law enforcement gave up on, stories that mainstream media won't touch, and mysteries that deserve answers. Your subscription literally helps us investigate more cases, reach more families, and maybe, just maybe, help solve these crimes. We're not just telling stories here, we're fighting for justice one case at a time. Subscribe right now and join our growing army of truth seekers who refuse to let these cases die in forgotten file cabinets. Hit that notification bell because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Some of these revelations will absolutely blow your mind. And please, share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who might hold a piece of the puzzle. What detail in this case bothered you the most? What do you think investigators should have done differently? Do you have theories about what really happened? Let us know in the comments below. Your perspective might be exactly what's needed to crack this case. Do you have information about this case? Don't hesitate to contact the FBI's Philadelphia field office. Even the smallest detail could be the breakthrough investigators need. What unsolved mystery should we explore next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, remember, the search for answers continues, and every case deserves to be solved. If you or someone you know has information about Jessica Richardson's case, please contact the FBI Philadelphia field office at 215-418-4000 or submit an anonymous tip at tips.fbi.gov. Your call could bring a family the answers they've been waiting for.